Okay, so these are the three big stories for today. So Biden signed the foreign aid bill. It's official. It's done. He signed it. The wheels are now in motion. Here were his remarks afterwards. I'm not going to play them, but you can look them up on C-SPAN. They're on my community tab. You can go click there. Um, I talked about everything you need to know about up through the Senate bill passage and what's going to happen next. So I'm not going to repeat myself. You can watch this. Here's how we got to where we are. All that was left was for Biden to sign the bill. He signed the bill, and I kind of projected what's going to happen into the future. But I want to talk about slightly different things that are related to passage. Like, for example, the art of the cave, how Ukraine and TikTok became strange bedfellows. There's a phrase in American vernacular: politics makes strange bedfellows. That is, people from different sides of the aisle get together about certain things sometimes. In an increasingly rare show of compromise in Congress, everyone is giving up something to get something, except for a peeved crew of MAGA members. So they were the big losers, and again, they didn't have to lose. They could have signed the other bill months ago and still gotten some immigration reform. It wouldn't have been perfect, but they could have had something significant. After more than a year of resistance from the hard right, now hard right, they mean MAGA. It's different. It's not right as you knew it. It's MAGA. Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican from Louisiana, agreed last week to allow the chamber to vote on billions of dollars of assistance to Ukraine, with the aid passing overwhelmingly with bipartisan supermajority. In the view of conservatives with major influence over the GOP conference, Johnson caved to the party establishment. So here, I want to correct this. In the view of MAGA, not of conservatives, in the view of MAGA, Johnson caved to the conservatives, which are two different things, but I just want to rephrase that because that's, I think, a little bit more accurate. What I'm reading is from the Daily Beast, which is a left-wing paper with a very left-wing point of view, but still, they have some good insights here. At the time, they passed Ukraine aid on Saturday, though House lawmakers attached legislation that would ban TikTok in the United States if its Chinese parent company does not sell the app within 9 months. The president having the authority to extend the time period after another 90 days. For some, this was a real burr under the saddle, and so that added some weight to the bill. Last month, TikTok ban won a vast majority of members in the House as a standalone bill, but the Senate seemed content to put the bill on ice amid furious lobbying push from the company and concerns over the nature of the proposal. That TikTok could push back as hard as it did shows that they have a lot of power. When it became clear that the TikTok ban would be paired with Ukraine, though, that reluctance melted away, with key senators in both parties caving on that position out of a free feeling of urgency to approve Ukraine aid. So you pair one with the other, and some people wanted it for this and some people wanted it for that, and they got it to go through with an overwhelming supermajority. In a display of the long-dead art of compromise legislating, everyone seemed to get a little bit of everything that they wanted, everyone except conservative Republicans, I'll say MAGA Republicans. Many MAGA members in both chambers are furious because they failed to secure the one thing that they wanted: tougher border policies, even though they had a deal in place to do so. Okay, I want to go back to this line. In a display of the long-dead art of compromising legislation, everyone seemed to get a little bit of everything that they wanted. And I thought, you know what? That's how the process is supposed to work. And by the way, I've been telling you the process takes time. It takes time. And things got in the way, like Trump really upended it for months. Okay. But I remember watching this documentary about Mandela. This was, I don't know, a couple years ago that I saw it, 5 years ago, something. It's a 1996 documentary about Mandela. And the clerk, the previous president, was saying, look, in a negotiation, neither party can leave victor and the other vanquished. You can't have either side feeling that. Everybody has to give a little something, and that's exactly what happened. That's the way the system is supposed to work. At some point, you'll hold your nose and go, well, this is better than that. And if all sides are doing that, but they're still getting something, the legislation will move through. So what's going to happen next? More U.S. military aid will help Ukraine defend against Russia, but victory is a long way off. So we're not expecting that the war is going to wrap up right away. What's going to happen is Ukraine now has the ability to defend itself against a looming Russian offensive. It's not even a Ukrainian counteroffensive, but it buys them time in order to build to where they need to go. Okay, the arms and ammunition in the $61 billion military aid package should enable Ukraine to slow the Russian army's bloody advances and block its strikes on troops and civilians. And it will buy time for Ukraine for long-term planning about how to take back the fifth of the country now under Russian control. Ultimately, it offers Ukraine the prospect of staying in the war this year. Like, that's what this did, because it took so long to get here and because we didn't provide other things that we needed earlier on in the sequence of events. So it bought us time to stay in. Okay, sometimes in warfare, you just got to stay in it. You've got to avoid being rolled over. The difference could be felt within days on the front line in eastern and southern Ukraine, where Russia's much larger army has been slowly taking territory against massively outgunned Ukrainian forces. The aid approval means Ukraine may be able to release artillery ammunition, dwindling stocks that it's been rationing. More equipment will come soon from American stocks in Poland and Germany. So now they can push some of their supplies that they've been sitting on, like in a reserve for absolute necessity, to the front line because it is coming. Okay, so that's where they are now. And you have to understand that that's a different place than where they were before. Okay, according to the Pentagon spokesperson, Patrick Ryder, the U.S., in collaboration with its allies and partners, has created a robust logistics network to facilitate the rapid delivery of Ukraine's $60 million, or $60 billion is what it is, in military aid. Okay, third big story. The chief of defense of Norway says the Russian armed forces are improving at a faster rate than expected. And I saw this in a Twitter post, and I followed through to the actual article in Breaking Defense. And this is really useful to understand as you're looking forward to what's going to happen. I'm concerned, Norwegian Chief of Defense General Erik Kristoffersen told Breaking Defense. I said it in January last year, I don't see short-term military solution in Ukraine. Like, it's not over now. Like, we're celebrating, but this is just a battle. It's not the war. Kristoffersen indicated one area in which Norway would potentially help. I've said it, and I still say that air defense is the most crucial capability for Ukraine right now. He's impressed by what Ukraine has managed to do. We're all impressed by what Ukraine has managed to do. I mean, there was a Pentagon official, unnamed, that said on a scale of 1 to 10, Ukraine's a 12 militarily. They've just done amazing things. Okay, he's impressed with what Ukraine has managed to do, especially as it's been short-handed in the last 6 months in terms of weapons to throw at the Russians. But he warned, Russia's own military is improving at a faster rate than he expected, in part because Russia has basically moved to a war economy. They have, and you have to understand that they have, and they're trying to build strength right now. They're actively working at it. And it's now able to produce weapons at higher rates than in 2023. I have more sense of urgency in 2024 than I had in 2023 about how quickly Russia can rearm its military, he said. The modernized, or the rebuilt, Russian force is closer to us now than I would say 1 year ago. Based on what they're already receiving from Iran and from North Korea, and how they've been able to basically not have sanctions have the effect that I expected them to have, had you asked me last year. Doctrinally, Russia is also finally catching up to the lessons from its failed 2022 invasion, Kristoffersen warned. And this is what I want to point out. They have these lessons learned that they're using. I think it took them some more time. I think the Ukrainians are much more innovative in the beginning. But if you have a very hierarchical system, once you have learned some lessons learned that you actually want to implement, they can do it fast. So if they decide to move from manned to unmanned systems in one area, they can decide to do it. It will go fast. So that's true. This is the value of a centralized system. But they can also go off the rails fast because a centralized system, while it can move fast, it doesn't necessarily have all the information to do it right. So there's an upside for the Russians, and there's also a downside for the Russians. And that's what we'll expect to see as we move forward. Last little bit, I just want to leave you with this image because it's beautiful. And I'm so pleased that we've gotten to this place today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribes. Thank you for your patience. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.